G'day, I'm Paul. So I've got to admit that I really didn't like the look of this car in pictures when I first saw it. I thought it looked a bit frumpy and just really strange with a whole lot of grille. But I'll tell you what, in person it's got some presence. This is the Genesis GV80. It's a big SUV from the Hyundai luxury spin-off brand. This one here is the entry level. It's the 2.5T rear-wheel drive, and it's priced at just over $90,000. This competes with things like the Mercedes-Benz GLE, the BMW X5, the Audi Q7, the Lexus RX. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes up on the screen there, or if you're on YouTube, just scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, I'd love it if you could hit subscribe and press the bell icon so you can find out every single time we review cars that look much better in person. Okay, let's talk about the exterior. This is probably the most polarizing part. You've got 11 colors to choose from, and they're all free of charge except a few matte colors. Those are an extra $2,000, and I think this would look pretty cool in a matte color, but also like this heritage looking green. Really stands out nicely. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is this enormous grille. It is an absolute whopper. It takes up most of that front end, but behind it you can see the active vanes for the engine, for the dynamic cooling. And then with a big number plate here, it kind of breaks it up nicely. So the registration plate really just sort of tears it apart and just gives it a bit of reference as well. So this is all chrome. It's all sort of chrome finish, so it's reflective. And then it's offset with these black elements down the bottom and then a black lip, and then little bits of chrome off to the side. Now the headlights are interesting because they come as LED as standard, but this car here has the optional luxury pack, so it gets matrix LED, and you can see it there split across these two segments. And this styling theme continues around the rest of the car. I'll show you that in just a moment. And you've got a little duct there off to the side that shoots around the corner. I'll whip around to the side of the car. So this comes standard with 20-inch alloy wheels, but it goes up to 22 inches on some of the other variants. That is an incredible wheel size. Now this car here doesn't have adaptive suspension, so I'll be keen to see what this is like out on the road, because 20-inch alloy wheel on a 50 profile tyre could get a little bit choppy if they haven't put a great deal of effort into tuning it. Now you'll notice here as well, this is the rear wheel drive, but they haven't gone to town on massive flared wheel arches or the plastic cladding that you see on some SUVs. They've kept it nice and sedate and quite sort of luxury feeling, and you'll see that chrome strip continues down the rest of the car. Now I mentioned there that theme with the two lights. You can see here as well, these are indicators. They light up simultaneously when you pop that indicator on. It's kind of that theme there where everything's broken up in twos. We'll zip around to the side here. You've got puddle lamps and also a camera integrated into that wing mirror. Then you can see more chrome here, and then that chrome look on top of the door handle as well. You've got privacy glass, roof rails, a almost panoramic glass sunroof, and then in terms of dimensions, it's just under 5 meters long, a little under 2 meters wide, which makes it around the same length and width as a Mercedes-Benz GLE. Around the back here, you've got these flared haunches. So being the rear-wheel drive model, they've tried to really make this stand out and signify its presence out on the road. Here's more of that dual light theme. So that continues there from the front, and you can see that LED strip all the way around the top there. 2.5T, which is the engine that's fitted to this car, and then more of that brushed chrome look. Real exhaust outlets, which is good news. Genesis branding here. There's no Hyundai branding on the car. GV80 for the model. And the interesting thing here is when we get to the boot section, there's no buttons or any sort of things that you have to play with here. It's just a simple little button attached to the wiper blade. So importantly, do I need a new set of specs, or do you think this looks good? Like I said, I really wasn't a big fan of this in pictures, but it's growing on me here in person. It's got a bit of presence to it. It turns heads. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I think they really needed to do something a little out there. You couldn't just make another SUV that looked like every other SUV on the road. Okay, we are inside the GV80. I'm just going to take a second here to process this because there's a lot going on, but I actually really like what's going on here. So let's start with the key, actually. We'll start with the key. So this is what it looks like. Completely different key to the rest of the Hyundai range. So this is the front of it. You have lock, unlock, boot. You can remotely move the car from the outside, so that's similar to the Sorento, and then also remotely start the car. On the back there you have the Genesis logo. Nice feeling key as well. It's a proximity sensing key, so you just leave that in your pocket, grab the door handle, and then you have this sort of Perspex covered starter button up the top. Now, just in terms of the rest of this, the steering wheel, I think this is the thing that stands out the most for me. Look at that design. It's just that center section. Just looks really nice and futuristic. You've got this center section for the airbag cover with a little cutout there for some of these controls, and then it's multicolored as well. It's just really nicely presented. I think it looks really cool. This car has the luxury pack, which is an extra $10,000, and amongst other things brings with it quilted Napa leather. That includes leather on the dashboard. You also get the quilting on the sides here, really nicely presented, and you also get this suede headliner as well. Now, the issue I have though with this light color, especially on the seats and this material here, is how quickly it'll become dirty. So you'll notice that this car's done 4,800 kilometers and already it's starting to look and feel a little bit dirty. I have the white interior in my Tesla and that is still spotless. With that interior though, it's not leather, it's like a some vegan material. It's not actual leather and it doesn't have the properties that make it mark like leather does. So just worth keeping in mind that if you go for a lighter color, it's going to be a little difficult to keep clean. But in terms of the styling itself, I really like this layout. You've got real wood used around the cabin, open pore. It just looks really nice and classy, especially stuff like this, the metallic sort of gear selector and then the infotainment controls. It is a little bit strange though that they've used different fonts. So the fonts here are different to the fonts here. So there's not really a great deal of consistency around the cabin in that regard. Okay, what about the touch points? So that's all really nice and soft. Same story here over on the door. But if you want to see exactly how soft those are, we have our durometer here. We've tested all the main surfaces in this car. And if you want to see how it compares to other cars that we've tested before, scroll down to the description and follow the link. Build quality. Okay, this is important. Obviously, this is an expensive car. You want to make sure it's all built well. Yes, it feels really good. Can't really fault that. So yeah, impressive build quality. Let's talk infotainment. So I guess this is the elephant in the room because of the size of this screen. 14.5 inches. It is absolutely huge. And I've got to say, it looks pretty stunning, I reckon. Now, pop quiz, those of you watching at home, which city is that? Let me know in the comments section below because I can't really tell which city it is. I'm hoping it makes sense to somebody and they can pick it out. So this is the home screen. Today we're just going to do a brief overview of this infotainment system. It's quite similar to the Kia infotainment system in terms of the features it has fitted to it. So if you do want to see a more detailed review of the features you can get in this, click up here. Today it'll just be a brief overview. So that is your home screen. Using the controller down here, you flick across to these vertical menus, and that's where you basically transition to other parts of the car. Let's have a look at radio. So you click it down by pushing on this and you get like a little bit of haptic feedback through your finger. You get AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio. And then on the sound system front, there is a 21 speaker Harman Lexicon branded sound system, 1050 watts. Fairly serious sound system with some of the speakers located under the seats. And on top of that, you have inbuilt satellite navigation. I love the clarity and the detail there. It's also a touch screen, so you can scroll around if you need to. Jump over here to our phone mirroring. So Apple CarPlay, Android Auto is both standard. It takes up most of the screen there when you have it displayed. There's that annoying battery discharge warning that keeps coming up. Every Kia and Hyundai we test it pops up. And Genesis. In terms of Apple CarPlay though, I love that integration. It's a big screen, it's all nice and sharp. The only downside is it can be a little fiddly using this because you can't really swipe between the different screens. You have to kind of use this and then click between it. In fact, that's one of the things I'm really not a fan of about this infotainment system. While you're on the move, some functions can be really hard to use. So for example, the radio, when you go into that, if you're driving along, keeping your eyes on the road, you click radio, you then want to go to the station list, you've got to scroll all the way up, click up there, then go station list, and then start scrolling through to find what you want. Can be a little bit distracting to do while you're on the move, and there's no way to do it on the screen ahead of the driver or in the head-up display. If you do that, it simply picks the next station in your favorites list as opposed to giving you an options list ahead of the driver like you find in some other brands. So a little bit annoying. The smartphone mirroring is cabled, so no wireless available, unfortunately. And this is what Android Auto looks like. We'll click on that. I guess there's an even smaller integration. It's like boxed itself over onto that side. Yeah, this is also super fiddly to use. I really wouldn't want to be playing around with that while I'm driving. Yeah, not really a fan of this infotainment system. That's a little bit frustrating. The other thing I'm not a fan of with that infotainment system is the voice recognition only works when you have a smartphone paired through a cable. If you don't have any of that set up, pushing that button does nothing, which means you can't call contacts while you're driving, you can't put in navigation destinations. It is just a little bit frustrating to use on the move. Other cool features that you have in here are the voice memo, which I love because you can come up with ideas while you're driving and then blab them into the car for later use. You then also have sounds of nature, so that allows you to play nice tunes to keep you nice and calm and keep the kids relaxed. You also have passenger talk, which is another cool feature that I haven't really seen before. It allows you to speak to occupants in the back of the car. I can hear my voice echoing at the moment. So it just projects your voice through the microphone to rear passengers. And then you also have over here quiet mode, which allows you to play music just for the front passengers to keep everything nice and quiet in the back row. There is one other cool feature I wanted to point out, and that is augmented reality with the satellite navigation. So when you do put a destination in, it's able to use the camera ahead of the car to project directions. I first saw this in the Mercedes-Benz EQC, and they've translated it here. I think it's a cool feature. Seems to work okay, and will help you when you try and find streets in busy cities and you need to know where to turn. So look, overall, the infotainment system is nicely presented. It's just a little bit fiddly to use while you're driving. Ahead of the driver is a 12.3-inch display. Now this one's kind of special because it has a 3D feature. So you can't really control much on the screen, which I think is a little strange. So the left is your speedometer cluster, the right is the tachometer, and then the center part you can change between the driver assistance systems, navigation, and then you can flick through and get tire pressure, digital speed layout, and also information about the driver attention monitor. But when you do flick it to 3D, and it's going to be tricky for the camera to pick this up, but it effectively brings an extra layer to the screen. So some of the parts of the screen float. And look, I don't know, I reckon it's a bit of a gimmick because I can see it there, but when you enable it, it becomes fuzzy and kind of becomes a little tricky to see. I prefer just the flat layout. So it's cool that it has it, but kind of a bit of a pointless feature, I think. And then ahead of the driver is a 12-inch head-up display. Let's talk about safety, and this car comes with a stack of safety features. So low and high speed autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. You have a driver attention monitor, so that's a couple of cameras here that keep an eye on your face, and if you're distracted and looking around or looking tired, it will warn you and then tell you need to take a rest. This is interesting as well. This is a center airbag, so this will inflate and prevent the two front occupants from hitting each other in a side impact. This is an important new thing that they're fitting to a lot of new cars. There is a lane keeping assistant and a semi-autonomous self-steering function. Both of those aren't amazing. They work okay if you're on a highway with well-marked lines and it's, I don't know, no hard turns, but over time you find that they can be a little bit annoying out in the country, for example, where they will just randomly turn the wheel when you don't need it to turn, but you can easily switch all of that off. You have radar cruise control as well, in addition to rear cross traffic alert, a blind spot monitor that's built into the wing mirror, but also into the cluster here. So when you activate the indicator, you get a little camera pop up to show you what is in your blind spot. And finally, you also have a safe exit assistant, so that prevents you from opening the door when another car is approaching. Now, reverse camera. This has a 360-degree reverse camera front and rear parking sensors. Let's see what the quality of that's like. Press this button here to activate it. Oh yeah, it's also got a semi-autonomous parking feature as well. Okay, so there is your reverse camera, 360-degree camera as well. You have a stack of other views that you can activate too. So you have the wide angle rear view that lets you see down the rear sides of the car. You have that full rear view. You also have that top-down view, handy if you're towing. And then you can also go down here to this view, which is interesting. So using your fingers there, you get the 3D layout of the car, and then you can move it around. Pretty impressive. Okay, on to practicality, and we'll start with your connectivity options. So you have wireless phone charging. I'll show you what that looks like. We'll get rid of this. Drop our phone into the wireless charger down there. Then if you want hardwired connectivity, so that's for your smartphone mirroring, you have a USB 3 port plus another charging port, and then a lighting indicator for the Qi wireless charger. There's also a 12-volt charger just down here as well. Now, what about storage? So when your phone isn't in the wireless phone charger, it can easily live down there. You've got another nook here for your phone, and then storage down the bottom that you can pop your phone into. Coffee cup test. So let's have a look. That fits perfectly. Easy to get out, means you're not going to spill your coffee anywhere. And then bottles, they can fit in both of those. There's teeth there as well to hold it in, plus storage for bottles and other odds and ends in the door. This center console opens, you have a little coin tray up the top. It's really nice and deep too. Give you an idea, that bottle is completely consumed by that. Glove box, decent size, bottle fits in there and it shuts. And then finally you have a sunglasses holder up the top. Moving on to comfort, so let's close all this stuff up. Now you have dual zone automatic climate control for the first row, and this is all controlled via this screen here, so you can just hit auto, then adjust your temperatures as required. You then have heated and cooled seats for the first row, heated steering wheel, heated and cooled seats for the second row as well. Then in addition to that, you have 18-way power adjustment for the driver's seat with seat memory and a massage function too. You also have the ability to move the seats in the front row and also the seats in the second row, all using the infotainment system. So you have full control over everything that is going on around you. Now, in terms of the comfort of the seats themselves, they are fantastic. So they hug you in beautifully. You sit here nicely and it just feels like you're at home in like an expensive sofa. Steering wheel sits nicely in the hand and all of these controls are easy to reach. There is just that issue of the infotainment system being a little fiddly that I mentioned earlier. Okay, we're in the second row of the GV80. Power closing doors. What about room? Look, it's pretty reasonable. Knee room's good. This seat's quite far back, so I'm impressed with the amount of room I have there. Toe room isn't amazing. It's kind of wedged under the seat there. Headroom is good though, especially when you consider you got this dual pane sunroof sort of eating into headspace. You also have two USB ports and a 12-volt outlet. You also have the ability to shift your passenger seat from the back. Well, this is where you control your third zone of climate control, also where you control your heated and cooled seats. I don't think I've ever, there's that battery warning again, I don't think I've ever seen a car with cooled seats in the second row, so that's pretty cool. Up here you have vanity mirrors with a little light in them if you want to check your makeup and your hairdo. Grab handles over here, LED lights around you, map pockets in the back of the seats, ISOFIX points on the two outboard seats, center armrest here with two cup holders. We'll see how they work. They work nicely with bottle storage in the door as well. You have power blinds on the doors. Have a look at that. All comes up and down with ease. But I reckon the coolest feature is this power seat adjustment. It is pretty schmickos. So yeah, look, this does feel quite luxurious, and to get all of these features in some of the competitor cars, you're gonna have to be spending some mega dollars. Okay, let's talk cargo space. So you can open the boot by just leaving the key in your pocket, approaching it when it's locked, and it will open, or you can just press the button there and then it will crack open on its own. Now, cargo space, you have a little over 700 litres available in this standard form. Under here, you've got a mat here just covering that cargo floor, but you have a space saver spare tyre. Then you also have a assistance kit. It's got all the little bits and pieces, safety triangle, that kind of thing. And then you have other storage beneath that for the net and also the cargo blind as well that can live under there too. Now, in terms of other little bits and pieces around here, you've got a 12-volt outlet off to the side, a couple of speakers, a net off to that side. I'll show you what it looks like with the luggage inside. This will be a pretty easy fit because it is a fairly enormous boot. Then if we get that out of the way, you've got a nifty feature off to the side here. You can drop both of these rear seats by pressing that button once. They disappear out of the way. How's the weather? It's nice and warm lately. 2020's done. Okay, there we go. With those out of the way, you have just over 2,100 litres of cargo space and pretty much a flat floor. Okay, so we've hit the road in the GV80. Powering this entry-level model is a 2.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine. It makes 224 kilowatts of power and 422 newton meters of torque, and it's mated to an 8-speed torque converter automatic. So no dual clutch transmission here, and I think that's a good thing because, I don't know, I'm just not a huge fan of dual clutches in vehicles this size. And while it was decent in the Sorento, it just sort of felt a little bit clumsy at times. So given they'd probably share that gearbox in a vehicle like this, it's nice to see they've gone with a torque converter instead. Now that all translates to a combined fuel economy of 9.8 litres per 100 kilometres. Now what are we achieving? Okay, so we're just a little bit over 11 litres per 100 Ks. So it's close enough to where we want it to be, and that's with predominantly highway driving with a little bit of city driving thrown in as well. Now you may think to yourself that given the size of this vehicle, this engine probably isn't appropriate. You can get the turbocharged V6 you'll find in the Stinger, a similar engine to that, and also a turbocharged V6 diesel. But tell you what, this is still a good option. It is a significant step down in terms of price, and it's still punchy enough for what you need. You can lean on the throttle whenever you need it. That 422 Newton meters is enough to propel it whenever it needs to go. And then if you give it a punch, it sort of pins you back nicely. It's got a fair bit of urge to it, and it just wants to get up and go. You do notice at times though that you can catch the gearbox napping. So right now we're doing sort of around 40 kilometers an hour. I'll give this a punch. Kind of have to wait a little bit for it to come back into life and respond, but once it does, it's pretty decent and engaging. It keeps you pushed back into the seat. The one thing I did notice here as well is that the tachometer is inverted, kind of like an Aston Martin, where they used to have the speed that was inverted. I don't know, I think it's just one of their little design quirks, but it's interesting. You just have to train your mind to watch that going the opposite direction instead of the direction you think it's going to be going in. Okay, let's talk drive modes. So this is your selector here. You change it left and right to go between Eco, Comfort, Sport, and Custom. So Eco just sort of dulls everything. Comfort is the standard drive mode, but we'll flick over to Sport because I'm curious to see what this is like. So no adaptive suspension in the entry level here. Give that a little push. Actually feels pretty decent. So it kind of gets the gearbox excited. It puts it into its raspy drive mode. It makes the throttle sharp. And then, gee, it's actually really impressive through the corners. It is a little bit soft and it has a touch of body roll, but once it extends a little bit, it just holds there. So yeah, while the other models are all-wheel drive, to be honest, it's like, I don't know that you're going to be going neck-breaking speeds in this anyway, and for the most part it actually handles really nicely. It sticks to the road well, it sends all that torque to the ground really easily. The only thing I'm not loving is just the engine sound. It just sounds a little bit yuck. It actually just sounds like a four-cylinder that's having its neck wrung out, and I don't know, it's fine for what it is because this engine will be used in other Hyundai products, but I don't know, I just reckon it just doesn't feel premium. It doesn't really match the rest of the feel of this car, which is why I think if you do want all of that to line up, you're probably better off going for the turbo V6 or the turbo diesel instead. Now, what about steering feel? So in the comfort mode, it doesn't have a great deal of weight to it, but it still offers enough communication. It's not the most communicative wheel. It's not like an X5 where you can feel everything that's going on, but it does have enough weight to it to actually feel like you're doing something. And as you transition back into sport, it gets much heavier, so you kind of feel a little bit more resistance as you input steering. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, if you flick between comfort and sport, when you go to sport, the dials change, they go all sporty, but the side bolsters come in and hug you. It kind of feels like the old RS4 when you put it into S mode, it would just come in and grab you. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Now, what about the 0 to 100 time? Genesis claims 6.9 seconds. Let's see how it goes against the stopwatch. Now, what about noise? We've hit a highway road here. We're doing some country speeds. Look, it's not quite Lexus quiet, but there isn't really any tyre noise coming into the cabin. There is a tiny bit of wind noise coming from somewhere, but for the most part, it is dead silent in here, and I think that's pretty impressive. This is a coarse chip road as well. I was expecting it to really translate a whole lot more of that through to the cabin, but that sound insulation is actually pretty good. One of the advantages Genesis has is they can lean on Hyundai and Kia's technology. So Harman, for example, developed noise cancelling, and that's through the speakers. So if you're a frequent flyer, you're on the plane, you put your noise cancelling headphones on and you flick them on, you barely hear anything because you've got a system of microphones cancelling out any noises that are about to come into your ear. They've developed a similar system for the car too. So in addition to the insulation they have within the body, this system actively monitors for road noise and then cancels out the road noise through the speakers. I mean, they claim it's a first, but I think we've seen this technology in a number of other cars. And look, for the most part, it seems to work pretty well, but you'd really want to hear it back to back with it being on and then off on the exact same stretch of road at the exact same speed, which we can't really test. Okay, we'll pop this back into comfort. Let's talk about the ride. So I mentioned earlier that this doesn't get the adaptive suspension that you get in the 2 6-cylinder models. But to be honest, it's not such a bad thing. The ride is actually really impressive for a car that's riding on 20-inch alloy wheels. You don't feel a great deal transmitted through to the cabin. It's a softer ride, so it means that when you hit bumps and potholes and stuff, it doesn't jar through the cabin. That does mean that it can linger a little bit if you hit some of those continuous undulations. But for the most part, it actually feels really nice and matches that premium feel that you would associate with a vehicle like this. Let's talk visibility. So yes, this is a big vehicle, but to be honest, it doesn't actually feel that big behind the wheel. You can see the edges of the bonnet there, and if I look out the back, there's decent enough visibility out the rear. Obviously, if you put passengers in the car, it'll be a little compromised. Okay, turning circle, 11.98 meters. That's a fair bit for a rear-wheel drive car, so keep that in mind when you're trying to do tight U-turns. Given this is rear-wheel drive, you're not going to be doing any rock hopping, but you do have 205 millimeters of ground clearance. And in terms of towing, you have a braked towing capacity of 2,700 kilograms, but only a maximum downball weight of 182 kilograms. So keep in mind, generally the rule of thumb is 10%, so you wouldn't want to be towing any more than 1,800 kilograms if you want to fit within that rule. Okay, Genesis GV80. So my job as a reviewer is to ignore brands and all that sort of stuff and just review a car on its merits. So while a lot of people complain about reliability and that kind of thing with some cars, I'm just reviewing the car that we drive on the day. And this car is really impressive. That interior is bloody nice. It is spacious. It comes with all the latest gadgets, the latest bells and whistles. It feels really high-end and premium. But so it should, because this is pretty expensive. It's within earshot of all the established German competitors who pretty much nailed down the formula. So Genesis is a new player to the market, and that means you're probably not going to see too many of these on the road just yet, but hopefully over time we will start seeing more, especially as that business model evolves. It's not your traditional sort of dealership setup. So let me know in the comments section below. Do you think they've done a good job with this as a first start? For me, it has vibes of early Lexus, where they took the Toyota product and just really refined it and just made it more and more luxurious. And you jump in a Lexus LS today and it is a special place to be seated. So that's how I feel about this. Ignore the brand, just look at the car and take it for a drive, see what you think. Let me know in the comment section below. Have you bought one? What do you think? I'm really keen for your feedback. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you hit like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.